The glass towers of Vanguard Global shimmered in the morning sun. Sharp, cold, unyielding. Beneath their reflection, Agent Elena Ward adjusted her blazer, her expression calm, her heartbeat anything but. To the world, she was Elena Moore, the newest executive assistant joining the CEO's office. In truth, she was deep undercover. Sent by the Intelligence Bureau to expose a corporation suspected of laundering billions through offshore subsidiaries. She'd studied the CEO, Adrian Blackwell, for weeks. Brilliant. Calculated. Ruthless, they said. A man whose empire touched every corner of the global market. Yet, as she read more, something didn't add up. Too much transparency, too many ethics committees, too clean. It was almost too perfect. The elevator ascended, smooth and silent. Elena watched her own reflection in the mirrored walls. "Stay focused," she whispered. "He's not who he seems. No one at the top ever is." When the doors opened, the view stole her breath. The CEO's floor was an architectural masterpiece. Sleek lines, quiet power, and glass walls that revealed the endless skyline. "Miss Moore." The voice was low, smooth, and surprisingly gentle. Elena turned. And there he was. Adrian Blackwell. Tall, sharp suit, eyes the color of steel but far too alive to be cold. He looked younger than she expected, early 30s, but carried himself with the calm confidence of a man who had already conquered the world. "Mr. Blackwell," she greeted, offering a polite smile. "It's an honor to be here." He studied her for a moment, his gaze assessing but not invasive. "I prefer working with people who don't scare easily," he said, a faint smile tugging at his lips. "Tell me, Miss Moore, do you scare easily?" Elena's pulse quickened, but her voice remained even. "Not easily. But I respect caution." "Good," Adrian said softly. "Because in this business, fear isn't the enemy. Complacency is." The air between them shifted. Subtle, charged. For the next hour, Adrian led her through introductions, security briefings, and schedules. His leadership style surprised her. Precise yet thoughtful. He listened more than he spoke, and when he did, his words carried weight. "This isn't what I expected," she thought, watching him from across the boardroom. No arrogance. No greed. No carelessness. Her earpiece buzzed softly. A coded signal from her handler. "Ward. Remember your mission. Get close. Gain access to his private files." She blinked once, maintaining her professional poise. "Understood," she whispered. By the end of the day, Adrian stopped by her desk. "How was your first day?" "Productive," she said. "Your company is impressive." His smile was faint but genuine. "Most people don't look impressed, they look intimidated. You're different." Elena met his gaze. "Maybe I've learned not to be afraid of power." For a heartbeat, something flickered behind his eyes, something she couldn't name. "Respect? Curiosity? Then you'll do well here," he said quietly. "Just remember, Miss Moore, in this building, everyone's watching everyone." As he walked away, Elena exhaled the breath she didn't realize she'd been holding. The city glittered beyond the glass, and her reflection stared back, an agent buried in deception, her pulse betraying her resolve. And somewhere deep down, a whisper of doubt formed. What if the real threat isn't him, but whoever's trying to destroy him? Morning sunlight spilled through the panoramic windows of Vanguard Global, turning the office into a cathedral of glass and gold. Elena adjusted her headset, eyes darting between multiple screens as she processed encrypted emails, meeting schedules, and investor reports. But beneath the routine, her real mission pulsed like a secret heartbeat. Her handlers had made it clear. Blackwell's hiding something. Get into his private server. Find the link to the offshore accounts. Every keystroke she made was deliberate, careful, invisible. She had to remain unseen, not just by security systems, but by him. Adrian Blackwell emerged from his office with his usual unhurried grace. No entourage, no bravado. Just calm authority and that unsettling quiet confidence that seemed to follow him like a shadow. "Morning, Miss Moore," he greeted, voice smooth but genuine. "Good morning, sir," she replied, standing straight. He paused, studying her screen. "Your efficiency is impressive. You've already reorganized the investor files." It's habit, she said, smiling faintly. Order helps me think. His lips curved slightly. Then you'll fit right in here. He was close now. Close enough that she could catch the faint scent of cedar and steel, clean and controlled. She forced her gaze to stay on the monitor, not on the man whose presence filled the space. By noon, she followed him into a board meeting. A sea of sharp suits, polite smiles, and predatory eyes. Elena stood at the edge of the room, tablet in hand, pretending to take notes while scanning the participants. She saw it immediately. Subtle glances exchanged between two executives, coded gestures, a phone slipped beneath the table. Something was wrong. When Adrian began his presentation, one of them quietly transmitted data via a hidden device. Elena's pulse spiked. Corporate espionage. But from inside his own company. She moved discreetly, positioning herself to block the signal. Her training kicked in, every movement smooth, natural. Within minutes, the transmission cut off. After the meeting, Adrian approached her. You noticed, didn't you? Elena's throat went dry. Noticed what, sir? His eyes narrowed slightly, studying her. You're observant. More than most. That's rare here. She hesitated, searching for the right balance between honesty and cover. Old habits, she said finally. He nodded slowly. I value old habits that keep people alive. The way he said it made her chest tighten. For a CEO, his instincts were too sharp, too trained. Later that night, Elena lingered by the window of her apartment, the city shimmering below. Her encrypted comms buzzed softly. Handler, progress report. Elena, Blackwell isn't what we thought. There's something off, but not in the way we expected. Handler, stay focused. Everyone has a weakness. Find his. She ended the call and closed her eyes. His weakness. The memory of his calm voice, the steady way he looked at her when others flinched, it played over in her mind. He wasn't ruthless. He was watchful. He didn't exploit, he protected. And that unsettled her far more than any criminal she'd faced. The next morning, she arrived early. Adrian was already there, sleeves rolled up, reviewing reports alone. He looked up, surprised but not displeased. You start before dawn now? He asked, faint amusement in his tone. Someone has to make sure you're not taking on the world alone, she said lightly before realizing the intimacy of her words. He smiled. Warm. Genuine. Disarming. Then I suppose I should be grateful you're here, Miss Moore. Elena turned to her screen, pretending to type, but her pulse betrayed her. What are you doing, Elena? She scolded herself silently. He's your target, not your ally. And yet, as the sun rose behind him, painting his silhouette in gold, she couldn't shake the feeling that maybe, just maybe, she was protecting the wrong side. The rain fell hard against the windows of Vanguard Global, each drop streaking down like a secret trying to escape. The city below glittered in fragmented reflections, beautiful but fractured. Much like Elena's mission. She sat alone at her desk long after everyone had left. The glow of the monitors painted her face in cold light as she navigated encrypted files, her fingers moving with surgical precision. Somewhere in the labyrinth of company data, there had to be something to justify her assignment. But instead of evidence of corruption, she found order, accountability, clean numbers. Too clean. Her brow furrowed. No one runs an empire this transparent. Unless. A faint static noise cut through her earpiece. It wasn't from her system. Someone was tapping into her feed. Agent Ward, came a distorted voice, her handler. But something was wrong. The signal was unstable, fragmented, as if being rerouted. You're falling behind, the voice crackled. You were sent there for a reason. Blackwell isn't innocent. Find the proof, or we'll find someone who will. The line went dead. Elena sat back, her pulse pounding. That wasn't the Bureau's secure frequency. Whoever just contacted her wasn't her handler. They were using the Bureau's signal as camouflage. Someone was inside her network. Watching her. Manipulating the mission. Hours later, she found herself in Adrian's office, summoned unexpectedly. He stood by the window, city lights framing his silhouette in golden shadow. You work too late, he said without turning around. I could say the same, she replied softly. He turned then, his expression unreadable. "You've been digging into our systems." Her stomach dropped. "Excuse me. I don't mean it as an accusation," he said, walking closer. "I monitor all system activity. You accessed restricted files last night." Elena's breath hitched. Her cover story flashed through her mind. Protocol, contingency, deception. "I was reviewing the archive databases," she said carefully. "I noticed unusual encryption in the older files. I thought it could be a vulnerability." Adrian studied her for a long silent moment. The kind of gaze that stripped away pretense. Finally, he nodded. "That's a good eye. You're right. Someone's been probing our systems. Subtle, but consistent." Her head snapped up. "Someone's hacking you?" "Yes," he said quietly. "From inside the company." For the first time, Adrian let the mask slip. He looked tired. "I built Vanguard to be clean," he said, pacing slowly. "No dark money, no political hands in the mix. That makes enemies. Powerful ones. Someone's been trying to frame us, me, for something we didn't do." The words hit her like a storm. He wasn't the target of the investigation. He was the victim. "Elena," he said suddenly. She froze. He rarely used her first name. "I don't know what your story is," he continued, voice low, "but I can tell you're not just an assistant. You notice too much. Move too carefully. If you're here because you think I'm hiding something, you're right. I am." Her pulse spiked. "What are you hiding?" He held her gaze, unflinching. "Not crimes. People. Good people. The ones these corporations would crush if I didn't protect them." Elena felt her throat tighten. For the first time since she'd gone undercover, she didn't know which side she was on. That night, she encrypted a new report, but stopped before sending it. If she told the Bureau the truth, they'd shut him down. But if she said nothing, she'd be defying orders. Her hand trembled over the keyboard. In the reflection of her monitor, her own eyes stared back, conflicted, uncertain, human. Then, a message flashed across her screen. "Unknown sender. We know what you are, Agent Ward. Stop protecting him, or you'll be next." The cursor blinked. The rain outside grew louder. And for the first time, Elena realized, this wasn't just surveillance. It was a war. The next morning dawned gray and heavy, a thin mist curling over the skyline like a warning. Inside Vanguard Global, tension rippled beneath the surface. Elena had barely slept. The anonymous message haunted her. "We know what you are." Whoever sent it wasn't guessing. They knew. Now, every passing glance felt loaded. Every smile too polite. The walls that once felt like glass now felt like cages. She moved through the building quietly, scanning each reflection, every mirrored surface. Her instincts screamed that the threat wasn't coming from outside the company. It was already inside. When she stepped into Adrian's office, he was on the phone, calm but curt, his jaw tight. "I said no, David," he snapped. "We don't deal with them. I don't care what the board wants. Some deals cost more than they're worth." He ended the call and exhaled sharply before noticing her. "Sorry," he muttered, running a hand through his hair. "You walked in on a disagreement." "Sounded like more than that," Elena said carefully. He gave a humorless smile. "You could say that. Some of my board members are pushing me to merge with a company I know launders money. They think it'll boost profits. I think it'll rot the foundation." His honesty disarmed her. He wasn't hiding corruption. He was fighting it. "You realize they'll come after you for that," she said quietly. He looked up at her, eyes steady. "They already are." A soft alarm beeped on her phone. Her surveillance alert. Someone had accessed her terminal remotely. She masked the sound, nodding as Adrian turned back to his computer. "They're watching me in real time." She needed to act before they compromised her cover completely. "Elena," Adrian said suddenly. "Come with me." He led her into the restricted data wing, a place few employees even knew existed. Layers of security codes, biometric scans, voice recognition. He keyed in access with calm precision. The doors opened to a dimly lit control center, a wall of monitors displaying live data feeds, communications intercepts, internal logs. "This," he said quietly, "is where I've been tracking the breaches." She stared in disbelief. The entire setup looked like something out of an intelligence bureau, not a corporation. "You built this?" she asked. "After someone tried to destroy us last year," he replied. "I learned that protection doesn't come from lawyers. It comes from knowing what the enemy's doing before they do it." There was that word again. Enemy. But now, she wasn't sure who that was anymore. He leaned closer, pointing to a stream of code running across one of the monitors. "This signal, it's coming from inside our system. Someone's using bureau-grade encryption. The kind government agencies use." Her heart nearly stopped. He was describing her. Adrian looked at her, eyes sharp. "You recognize this, don't you?" She opened her mouth. No words came. Her pulse thundered in her ears. "Elena," he said softly. "Who are you really?" The room fell into silence. Only the hum of machines filled the air. She could lie. She could deflect. But one more lie could cost him his life. Finally, she whispered, "I was sent here by the Bureau to investigate you." His expression didn't change. No anger, no shock. Just a flicker of sadness. "And what did you find?" She swallowed hard. "That you're the only one trying to do the right thing." He held her gaze, something raw flickering in his eyes. "Then you understand why you can't leave now. Whoever sent you, they're part of this." Before she could answer, the lights flickered. A security alert blared on the monitors. "Unauthorized access. Executive floor." Adrian's expression hardened. "They're here." Elena reached into her jacket and drew a concealed sidearm. "No more pretense. Stay behind me." He didn't argue. As the doors slid open, the sound of approaching footsteps echoed down the corridor. Sharp, deliberate, merciless. For the first time their missions aligned. Protect the company. Protect each other. And in that moment, under flickering lights and pounding hearts, the lines between duty and trust finally blurred into something deeper. Something dangerously human. The alarms echoed through the steel corridors of Vanguard Global, red lights pulsing like a heartbeat in crisis. Elena moved first, swift, precise, weapon drawn, her instincts overtaking everything else. She pressed Adrian back against the reinforced wall, eyes scanning for movement. "Stay behind me," she whispered, tone sharp but controlled. "You're the one they're after," he murmured, voice low and steady. "I should be saying that to you. Not tonight." The elevator doors down the hall hissed open. Two armed intruders stepped out, dressed in corporate security uniforms but moving with the precision of trained operatives. Not company men. Mercenaries. Adrian's breath stilled. "They're not mine." "I know," she said, already raising her weapon. "Which means we're both in their way." Gunfire shattered the silence. Glass burst across the floor like frozen rain. Elena moved fast, ducking low, rolling behind a column, returning fire in tight, efficient bursts. Adrian grabbed a fallen security shield, dragging it between them as cover. Despite the chaos, she noticed his composure. No panic, no wasted movement. For a CEO, he handled himself like a man who'd seen combat before. When the last gunman fell, silence reclaimed the corridor, broken only by their heavy breathing. Elena stood slowly, checking corners, eyes alert. "You need to evacuate the building. Now." Adrian shook his head. "They won't stop if I run. This isn't just an attack. It's a message." Her gaze met his. "You think it's from the board?" He nodded grimly. "The merger I refused, it's tied to someone powerful. They want me out of the way. Permanently. Then we find proof," she said firmly. "And we hit back before they do." He studied her for a long moment. "You don't have to stay involved, Agent Ward. Your mission was to expose me, not protect me." "Yeah, well," she muttered, reloading her weapon, "missions change." They made their way to the control room, the nerve center of Vanguard's data systems. Sparks flickered from damaged wiring. Several terminals were still active, their screens scrolling lines of corrupted code. Elena quickly logged in, bypassing firewalls, decrypting system logs. Her heart sank as she recognized the digital signature. Her own bureau's encryption key. "They used my credentials," she said, voice tight. "Whoever's behind this, they're inside my agency." Adrian stood beside her, jaw tightening. Then it's not just my company they're targeting. A file blinked on the monitor. Project Nexus. She opened it, and froze. Inside were surveillance reports, not on Adrian, but on her. Images from field missions, dossiers, movement patterns, even psychological assessments. Adrian leaned in. They've been watching you too. Elena's throat tightened. They turned my mission into bait. Before they could react, the power cut out. The room plunged into darkness, emergency lights casting eerie red glows along the walls. From the shadows, a familiar voice echoed. Well, Agent Ward. You always were too clever for your own good. Elena's blood ran cold. Director Hale, her bureau handler, stepped into the dim light, flanked by 2 armed men. You, she whispered. You set this up. Hale smiled thinly. Blackwell was never the target. You were. You got too close to something classified. So we fed you a false op. Sent you here to be cleaned up quietly. Adrian moved instinctively in front of her, shielding her with his body. If you want her, you'll have to go through me. Hale's smirk widened. I expected as much. The hero CEO with a conscience. He nodded to his men. End it. Elena fired first. A burst of movement, a flash of muzzle light. The room exploded into chaos. She and Adrian ducked behind the main console as bullets ricocheted off metal. Sparks rained down, the acrid scent of smoke filling the air. Hale shouted orders, but his men fell one by one to Elena's precision. She fought like a ghost. Fast, efficient, unstoppable. When the smoke cleared, Hale was gone, vanished through the service corridor. Elena lowered her weapon, panting. Adrian's arm was bleeding from a shallow graze, but his eyes were steady. You're hurt, she said, reaching for his sleeve. It's nothing, he said quietly. Then with a faint disbelieving smile. You just saved my life again. You do the same, she said softly. Their eyes met, firelight dancing between them, the tension thick enough to silence everything else. Looks like we're both running now, he murmured. She nodded slowly. Then we run together. As the building's alarms wailed and sirens echoed outside, they slipped through the underground exit. 2 fugitives framed by the same organization that had betrayed them both. Above them, the city gleamed, cold, merciless, and unaware of the war unfolding in its shadows. And for the first time, Elena knew exactly where her loyalties lay. Not with the Bureau. Not with the mission. But with the man walking beside her. The city never truly slept, but tonight, its heartbeat felt distant. Elena and Adrian moved through the maze of old subway tunnels beneath downtown. Long forgotten by commuters but alive with the hum of their footsteps and the drip of unseen water. They'd escaped the chaos at Vanguard, but freedom was an illusion. The Bureau's reach extended far beyond the city. Elena stopped at a rusted service gate, keying in a sequence on a portable pad. The gate groaned open to reveal a small safe house, dimly lit, stocked with emergency supplies, a single desk, and a narrow bed. This is where you hide? Adrian asked, scanning the room. It's not glamorous, she said, shrugging off her jacket, but it's off-grid. No cameras, no digital footprint. We buy time here, nothing more. Adrian gave a dry smile. I'm starting to value time more than money these days. She tried to smile back, but exhaustion pulled at her features. She checked his arm. The graze from the earlier firefight had reopened. Sit, she ordered gently. You're bleeding again. He obeyed, lowering himself onto the edge of the bed. The air between them felt charged. Too quiet, too close. She cleaned the wound carefully, her hands steady, though her heart wasn't. The scent of gunpowder and sweat lingered on them both. Adrian watched her silently. You've done this before. More times than I'd like to count. For the Bureau, he asked. She hesitated. For the people they told me were the good guys. His gaze softened. And now. Now. She wrapped the bandage tightly, meeting his eyes. Now I'm not sure there are any. For a moment, neither spoke. Only the faint hum of the city above filled the silence. Then softly he said, You risked everything for me tonight. Why? Elena looked away. Because you didn't deserve to die for someone else's lies. That's not an answer. She drew a breath, her voice quieter this time. Maybe I don't know the answer yet. Later, while Adrian slept lightly on the bed, Elena sat at the desk, decrypting the stolen bureau files she'd salvaged during their escape. The flickering monitor illuminated her face as lines of classified data scrolled past. Her chest tightened as she read. The conspiracy was far deeper than she'd imagined. Project Nexus wasn't just surveillance. It was a covert operation linking corporate executives, government officials, and intelligence officers in a network of controlled influence. Vanguard Global wasn't the target. It was the last independent company standing in their way. Hale had been right about one thing. She had gotten too close. Behind her, Adrian stirred. "You found something," he said quietly. Not a question but an observation. Elena turned the screen toward him. This is proof they've been manipulating global markets, using both private corporations and government funds. You were supposed to be their next acquisition." His jaw clenched. "And when I refused, they framed you," she finished. "Then they sent me to finish the job." For a moment, the only sound was the hum of the computer. Then Adrian said softly, "I should hate you for that." "Do you?" she asked, eyes searching his face. He took a long breath. "No. Because if you hadn't been here, I'd be dead by now." Her throat tightened. "I didn't come here to save you." "Maybe not," he said, stepping closer. "But you did anyway." The air thickened between them, unspoken words, unacknowledged feelings. The distance of duty melted away until it was just two people bound by danger and something that felt dangerously like trust. She looked up at him, her voice barely above a whisper. "Adrian." He brushed a lock of hair from her face, his touch hesitant, reverent. "You don't have to say anything," he murmured. "Just, don't lie to me anymore." She nodded slowly. "I won't." Then, almost reluctantly, he stepped back, reclaiming the space between them. "We can't stay here," he said, his tone shifting back to business. "If the Bureau's compromised, we'll need allies. People who still believe in the truth." Elena straightened, masking the flicker of emotion. "There's one name in the files. An ex-agent who went underground after refusing Project Nexus. If she's still alive, she might help us." He nodded. "Then we find her." Outside, the storm had passed. The first light of dawn filtered through cracks in the tunnel ceiling, washing the room in faint gold. Elena powered down the computer, her mind racing with plans and fears she couldn't afford to voice. Adrian stood by the doorway, the morning light catching his profile. Strong, resolute, impossibly steady. She joined him, their shoulders brushing as they stared up at the faint glow above. "We exposed them," she said. "And we survived doing it," he replied. Their eyes met, and for the first time, neither looked away. The city stretched before them like a web of glass and light. From the shadows of an abandoned warehouse on the outskirts, Elena adjusted her comm unit, eyes scanning the horizon. They'd been on the run for 3 days, sleeping in safe houses, changing vehicles, leaving no trace. The Bureau's reach was everywhere. But they finally had a lead. The last name on the Project Nexus file, Ria Voss, former senior operative, disappeared 6 years ago after refusing to carry out a political assassination. If anyone knew how to expose the network, it was her. If she was still alive. Adrian stood beside Elena, hands tucked into his coat pockets. The shadows softened his sharp edges, made him look more like the man she saw in quiet moments than the powerful CEO the world once feared. "You're sure she'll come?" he asked. "No," Elena admitted. "But she's been watching. I left a trace in the encrypted message, something only a Bureau insider would recognize." He raised an eyebrow. "You left bait." "I left a signal," she corrected. "Bait implies I expect her to bite." A flicker of a smile touched his lips. "I like how your mind works." Elena tried not to return the smile, focusing instead on the darkness beyond the window. Her hand rested unconsciously near the pistol at her side. Minutes stretched. Then, a faint click. From the far side of the warehouse, a door creaked open. "Still punctual, Agent Ward," came a woman's voice, low and cool. Elena turned slowly. Out of the shadows stepped Ria Voss, tall, composed and armed. Her once blonde hair was streaked with gray now, her expression sharp enough to cut through the tension in the air. "So," Ria said, eyes flicking between them, "you finally figured out that the Bureau you trusted doesn't exist anymore." Elena's chest tightened. You knew about Project Nexus. I helped build it, Rhea said simply. Before I realized it wasn't about national security. It was about control. Economic, political, global. She walked closer, gun still loosely in hand. And now you've brought a corporate titan into the middle of it. Smart or stupid, I can't decide. Adrian met her gaze evenly. I didn't choose this. No one does, Rhea murmured. But you're in it now. They moved to an old table in the center of the warehouse. Dust danced in the light filtering through broken skylights. Rhea activated a portable projector, displaying streams of data across the table. Financial transactions, coded communications, intercepted bureau files. This, she said, pointing to the web of names and accounts, is the real structure of Project Nexus. Every major government and conglomerate tied together under a single intelligence directive. Blackwell, your refusal to join made you a liability. Ward, your skill made you a threat. They decided to erase you both. Elena stared at the data, jaw tightening. Then we need to leak this. Go public. Rhea shook her head. You leak it without proof, they'll bury the story, and you with it. You need a live feed, something undeniable. There's a secure server in the Bureau's central data hub. Upload it there, and the system will broadcast the file across every intelligence network worldwide. Adrian frowned. That building's a fortress. Exactly, Rhea said with a grim smile. Which means they'll never expect you to walk through the front door. As the plan took shape, Adrian leaned against a support beam, watching Elena work. She looked different now. More fierce, more determined than the woman who'd walked into his office weeks ago pretending to be an assistant. You trust her? He asked Rhea quietly. Rhea gave a small smirk. I trained her. That hit Elena harder than she expected. She looked up. You were my instructor at the academy. Rhea's eyes softened for a brief moment. You always saw through lies faster than the others. I just didn't think you'd have to see through mine. Night fell before they moved out. As they prepared to leave, Adrian stopped Elena near the doorway. You've been quiet, he said softly. Just thinking, she murmured. About what happens after this. If we make it. He stepped closer, the faint hum of the projector fading behind them. What happens after this, he said, depends on whether you still trust me when the world sees the truth. She met his eyes, the space between them charged and fragile. Trust isn't my problem, she whispered. Losing you might be. He exhaled slowly, as if the admission itself carried weight. Then let's make sure that doesn't happen. Outside, Rhea waited by the car, watching them with quiet understanding. You two might just pull this off, she muttered. As the car sped into the night, the city lights blurred into streaks of gold and silver. A promise, a warning, a countdown. For the first time, Elena felt something she hadn't in years. Hope. But somewhere in the Bureau's dark corridors, Director Hale watched their movement feed on a glowing monitor, a cold smile curving his lips. Let them come, he said softly. The trap's already set. The night hung heavy over the Bureau's headquarters, a steel and glass fortress gleaming against the skyline like a predator's eye. From a vantage point across the street, Elena, Adrian, and Rhea stood in silence, watching the main tower pulse with white security lights. This is suicide, Adrian murmured, adjusting the comm in his ear. Rhea gave a sharp smile. Only if you do it wrong. Elena's eyes remained fixed on the building. Every instinct screamed that something was off. The Bureau was too quiet, too still. Hale would never leave the heart of his empire unguarded. She took a breath. We move in now. Rhea, you take the service entrance. Adrian and I will go through the east side and head for the main server room. Rhea nodded, slipping her weapon into her holster. See you at the top. She vanished into the shadows, a ghost from another life. The east corridor was empty when Elena and Adrian entered, the hum of distant generators echoing through the hall. Elena swiped an old Bureau access card through the security panel. The lock clicked green. Adrian gave her a look of quiet admiration. Remind me to never underestimate your past training. Remind me to stop enjoying it when you do, she replied, lips twitching despite the tension. They moved through the dim halls, footsteps soundless on the polished floor. Cameras tracked motion overhead, but every time one pivoted toward them, the feed flickered. Ria's work. They were inside. When they reached the server control room, Elena's pulse was racing. The core chamber glowed with pale blue light, filled with towering racks of data processors. She plugged in her encrypted drive. Once the upload starts, she told Adrian, there's no going back. The system will broadcast the files across every intelligence network worldwide. No way to stop it. Adrian nodded, his expression resolute. Then let's do it. She hit enter. The monitors came alive with scrolling code. Line by line, the truth began to unfurl. The corruption, the falsified reports, the funding trails leading to global manipulation. Adrian stared at the screens, disbelief mingling with fury. This could destroy everything they built. That's the point, she said softly. Then, the lights flickered. Elena froze. Backup powers kicking in, she whispered. That shouldn't happen. A voice echoed through the intercom. Smooth. Cold. Familiar. You've always been predictable, Agent Ward. Elena's stomach dropped. Director Hale. The main doors slid open with a hiss. Hale stepped in flanked by armed operatives, his silver hair gleaming under the fluorescence. I gave you a chance to be part of history, he said, voice calm, almost paternal. You could have had everything. Elena drew her gun, standing between him and Adrian. And you could have stopped destroying innocent lives. Hale smiled faintly. You always were emotional. That's why I never trusted you with real power. He turned to Adrian. Mr. Blackwell. You should have stayed in your glass tower. You had no idea the world you were walking into. Adrian met his gaze coolly. You underestimate how fast I learn. The operatives raised their rifles. Hale tilted his head. You can't win this. Hand over the drive, and I might let you live long enough to watch your empire burn. Elena steadied her weapon. You'll have to kill me first. Hale's eyes flicked with amusement. That was the plan. The air cracked. Gunfire exploded through the room. Elena fired back, ducking behind a console. Sparks erupted from shattered monitors. Adrian grabbed the fallen operative's weapon, covering her flank. Ria! Elena shouted through her comm. We're compromised. Static. Then, on my way, Ria's voice crackled, breathless. Hold your position. Elena vaulted from cover, taking down another guard. But Hale wasn't shooting to kill. He was stalling. She realized it too late. A red warning light flared on the main console. Remote data purge initiated. Hale smirked. Did you really think I'd let you walk in here with the truth? Adrian cursed. He's wiping everything. Elena dashed to the console, hands flying across the keys. I can stall it. 40 seconds maybe. Then do it, Adrian said, reloading. Hale raised his pistol, aiming straight for her. 40 seconds too long. The shot rang out. But it wasn't Elena who fell. Ria had appeared in the doorway, her gun smoking. Hale staggered, clutching his side, eyes wide with fury. You! Hello, Director, Ria said coldly. Miss me? He dropped to his knees, blood pooling beneath him. Elena turned back to the console, her voice tight. Upload complete in 10 seconds. Adrian covered her, firing until his magazine clicked empty. 5, 4, 3. The monitors flashed. Transmission successful. The truth was free. Silence followed, the kind that felt too big for the room. Ria leaned against the wall, breathing hard. Hale lay still, his empire crumbling with every passing second. Adrian turned to Elena, eyes burning with something between triumph and disbelief. You did it. She exhaled, shaking. We did it. Outside, sirens wailed, the bureau in chaos, agents turning on each other, the machine of secrecy finally breaking. Ria looked at them both, a faint smile on her blood-stained face. You two should go. They'll rebuild but not tonight. Elena hesitated. Come with us. Ria shook her head. My time's over. Yours isn't. And with that, she walked toward the corridor, fading into the smoke and flickering lights, just as ghosts do. Elena and Adrian emerged into the night, the building behind them alive with fire and alarms. For the first time, there were no more lies. No more missions. Just the truth, and whatever came next. Adrian turned to her, voice quiet amid the chaos. You know, for someone who was supposed to deceive me, you're terrible at it. She smiled faintly. Guess I need more practice. He stepped closer, his gaze soft. Don't. I like the real you better. And in that moment, beneath the glow of a burning skyline, Elena let herself believe that maybe, just maybe, the war was over. At least for tonight. The world woke up to chaos. News feeds across continents blazed with the same headline. Project Nexus exposed. Global corruption network unveiled. Governments scrambled to deny involvement. Markets froze. The Bureau's name, once whispered with reverence and fear, was suddenly synonymous with treachery. And through it all, two names appeared in the storm of speculation. Adrian Blackwell, the reclusive CEO who had dared to defy the system, and Elena Ward, the operative who had vanished from the Bureau's ranks. They had been on the road for weeks now. A cabin deep in the Northern Highlands had become their refuge. The kind of place where time slowed and the world seemed impossibly far away. Outside, mist rolled across the heather-covered hills. Inside, the faint crackle of a fire filled the quiet. Elena stood by the window, mug in hand, eyes following the horizon. She wore one of Adrian's sweaters, a fact that he noticed every time but never mentioned. You're doing it again, he said from behind her. Doing what? Watching the world like it's about to disappear. She glanced back, offering a faint smile. Old habits. He stepped closer, his voice softer. You don't have to keep running, you know. The Bureau's falling apart. Half of them are testifying to save themselves. Half of them, she repeated. That means the other half will spend their lives trying to rebuild it. Adrian studied her face. The exhaustion, the guarded strength. And what about you, Elena? What do you want to rebuild? She hesitated. The question lingered in the air like smoke. Finally she said, something real. Something that isn't built on secrets. Adrian nodded slowly. I'd like that too. Later that night, while Adrian slept, Elena sat at the small wooden desk, sifting through the last few encrypted files she had salvaged before the upload. Her fingers paused on a familiar name, Ria Voss. The file was tagged deceased in official records, but she knew better. There was a single line of code embedded in the metadata. The truth never dies. Neither do we. Elena smiled faintly. It was Ria's way of saying goodbye. She closed the file and looked toward Adrian. The firelight painted his features in soft amber. Peaceful, human, vulnerable. The man who had once been her target was now her anchor. For years, she'd lived in shadows. But with him, she found light again. Morning came slowly, pale sunlight spilling across the hills. Elena stepped outside, the air crisp and cold against her skin. The world was quiet. Too quiet for someone used to noise and danger. She heard footsteps behind her and didn't need to turn to know it was him. Coffee's ready, Adrian said, offering her a steaming cup. Thanks. They stood there in silence, side by side, watching the horizon. After a while, Adrian said, the markets are recovering. The governments are rebuilding. You did what the Bureau never could. You gave people the truth. She took a sip, her voice quiet. Truth doesn't fix the world, Adrian. It just gives it a chance. He looked at her for a long moment. And what about us? Do we get a chance too? Elena turned to him, her gaze steady. Depends on whether you can live with a spy who burned down half the intelligence community. He grinned. I think I can manage that. She raised an eyebrow. Confident, aren't you? He shrugged. I was a CEO. Overconfidence is part of the job description. She laughed softly, the first genuine laugh he'd heard from her since the Bureau's fall. The sound eased something in both of them. By afternoon, they had packed what little they owned, files, clothes, old Bureau tech, and a small black case that Adrian refused to let out of his sight. Elena glanced at it as he locked it into the trunk. What's in there? He smirked. Insurance. Against what? Whatever comes next. She didn't press further. Some secrets she'd learned were best left unopened until the right moment. That night, under a blanket of stars, they sat outside the cabin, a bottle of whiskey between them. Do you ever miss it? Adrian asked. The Bureau. She shook her head. I miss believing it was the right thing. He nodded thoughtfully. I know the feeling. After a moment he said, so what now? We could disappear. Change names. Start over. She smiled faintly. And do what? Anything, he said simply. Start a private firm. Protect people the Bureau wouldn't. Use your skills for the right side this time. Her eyes softened. You make it sound simple. He met her gaze, his tone quiet but sure. It doesn't have to be complicated, Elena. You don't owe anyone your past. She looked at him for a long moment, then whispered, maybe I don't. But I do owe myself a future. He smiled. Then let's build it together. And for the first time, she didn't flinch from the idea. As dawn broke, the first rays of sunlight painted the horizon in gold. Elena stood at the doorway, feeling the warmth against her face. Adrian joined her, his hand brushing hers. Neither spoke. There were no more lies to tell, no missions left to complete. Only the truth, raw, unguarded, and real. She turned to him, eyes bright in the morning light. You know, for a man who used to rule the world, you make a terrible fugitive. He chuckled softly. Good thing I've got a professional watching my back. Elena smirked. Just don't make me regret it. He leaned closer, his voice low. I'll try my best. And as the sun climbed higher, the world outside began anew. Uncertain, imperfect, but finally theirs. The mission was over. But their story was just beginning. Thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more original novel stories. And stay tuned, our next story is coming soon.